Catch me next Sunday on the Terry Christian Show.
Yeah, there you go, some fantastic stuff. All them Yorkshiremen next week. Brian Blessed, Jeffrey Boycott. Fantastic. Today, though, we've got Whispering Bob Harris. I mean, you used to get loads of people imitating you in the old days of the whistle test, didn't you? Wow, great.
Yes. Well, it even surfaced in the Fast Show, where you got the jazz man going, great. You know, all that. Nice. Because I used to sit and I used to get so into the music when I was sitting there in the studio, you know, and the band would finish and I'd think, that was so great. You know, as I turning back to the camera, that was so great. And of course, people began to take this off, and all the goodies became me on a sort of jukebox jury thing. Benny Hill did me, you know, it was so funny.
I mean, massive at the time, really, wasn't it? I mean, did you? Because in one of the interesting things about your book, The Whispering Years, which came out a few years ago, is you talk about this almost battle with fame. Because you must have been had so much power, because you reflected the album charts, plus there was a certain coolness about it then with, you know, bands like Led Zeppelin, Yes, you know, and as you said, people like Curtis Mayfield, all the stuff you had on the whistle test, you know, Tom Waits, it was all cool stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never sort of thought about television or being on television. You know, my passion has always been radio. I've always loved and felt very comfortable on the radio. So, you know, when I found myself on television, and particularly then, you know, bearing in mind that about 2 years in, Whistle Test was getting a weekly audience of over 5.5 million, which when you think of that nowadays, you know, and it was...
also, not everybody had BBC Two in them days, did they, Dave?
No. You didn't have a telly, my friend. Yeah.
Now, because it's multi-channel and everything else. And if you're into your album music and that's where you wanted to go, the one stop was Whistle Test. So, because during the course, and we were on 42 weeks of the year, that was the other thing. It rolled right through the year. So, at some stage or another, everybody's going to see that program. So, I became very, very recognisable.
And then you got this awful kind of backlash when punk came out because you weren't putting any punk bands on.
Yeah, that's right. Because the Whistle Test was the album show.
But didn't you actually get beat up, physically attacked by punks?
Sex Pistols.
Was it actually by them or just their fans?
Yeah, no, by them, because it was the day they'd signed with A&M Records, and they'd been stoking up down the A&M offices down in New Kings Road and arrived at this club, the Speakeasy, about 9 o'clock in the evening, and I got there with a couple of friends of mine about 10:30, 11. And we were sort of heaven sent, really. All hell broke loose. I mean, it was unbelievable.
So what were they saying? Is they were like throwing punches at you?
There wasn't any conversation at all.
I'll give you Gummer.
Yeah.
You're old hippie.
Pink Floyd. Which one's Pink? You know. Yeah. But no, one of the guys came. I was with a friend of mine called George Nicholson, who was an engineer that I was working with at Morgan Studios. In fact, Roy, you know, my friend Roy, who I mentioned earlier, he was in a band that
Roy Webber, he was in Wally, wasn't he?
That's right, and we'd been producing some stuff with Roy that day, and had stopped off in the Speakeasy on the way home, and George got a bottle in his head, 14 stitches, yeah, and then of course the press and everything. I got home about 8 o'clock in the morning. There were 40, 50 press people, photographers. It was just, you know. It's just all hell broke loose.
Not good publicity for them, really, at the time, was it?
Well, actually, kind of, it was in a way. You know, I mean, I
just
think it was
beating up Bob Harris. Yes. It's not exactly start the revolution, is it? It would have never have happened in the 80s, would it? Because it would have looked bad attacking somebody while you were wearing leg warmers and pixie boots.